Here's every Halloween Horror Night house I've ever been through, ranked from worst to best. Saw the Games of Jigsaw was literally just people dying and in traps, and it kinda shows that Saw doesn't really work as a house. The only real scares in this house came from the pigs. The Horrors of Blumhouse Chapter 2 was awful. Everything involving Happy Death Day felt very repetitive, and The Purge was, well, The Purge. If you guys didn't know, we were originally going to get an Evil Dead house, but that fell through last minute, so instead we got Hellblock Horror, and yeah, that definitely felt like a last minute house. It's literally just a prison filled with Easter eggs. Did I enjoy some of those Easter eggs? Yes, but still, this was not a good house. As a big fan of the movie, Jordan Peele's Us was such a huge disappointment. Yes, the actors did a great job, and the scene at the end is awesome, but overall the house was just really boring. Considering how good the first one was, Stranger Things from Halloween Horror Nights 29 was such a letdown. I hate how they just crammed in Season 3 when they could have easily just saved it for the next year, although the Mind Flayer at the end was really cool. Hive is not a bad house by any means. I love the costumes, the makeup, and the actors did a great job, and there are some good ideas here. However, the house felt kinda basic, and it gets a little repetitive. Spirits of the Coven was so disappointing. It had such a cool concept. Although the house is very pretty and the actors did a pretty good job, the house overall just felt kinda empty. So believe it or not, I actually liked the first Horrors of Blumhouse. Yes, it is really messy because it is mostly an Insidious house, but I liked it because it was mostly an Insidious house. Texas Chainsaw Massacre has great theming, great costumes, and I also love that effect that they did with the sparks. However, this house was really messy, and most of the jump scares felt the same. I like Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers more than most people do. I thought the actors did a great job, especially the ones playing Michael Myers, and it had some really good scares. Overall, I enjoyed this house. If there's any house I'd give a second chance to, it would definitely be Dead Exposure Patient Zero. I feel like I treated this house very unfairly. I mainly criticize it for it being so dark and mostly just being strobe lighting, but if you understand what the story of the house is, it makes sense, plus it creates for a very disorienting experience. Nightingale's Blood Pit is a house that a lot of people hate, but I actually really like. It's nothing special, but it had good scares, I love the lion puppet, and the facade is just amazing. I enjoyed this house. I really like Depths of Fear. It wasn't that scary, but it was cool. I love the design of the fish creatures, and I also like the fact that you don't make it out in the end. This is by far the best Horrors of Blumhouse we have gotten. Although the freaky section was kind of whatever with 3 really good scares, what carries this house is Black Phone. It was so well done, it was very creepy, and it had some of the best scares of the event. If you knew nothing about Cary, Ohio, you probably didn't like Welcome to Scary Horror in the Heartland. Me personally, I really enjoyed it. I loved all the callbacks. Do I wish this house was a little better? Yeah, but it has both Cindy and Meaty Meats, so what more can I ask for? Although I didn't like it as much as everyone else did, I still thought Halloween was a pretty solid house. When the scares get you in this house, they get you, especially the closet and the last room. I really liked Carnival Graveyard Rust in Pieces. I thought the actors did amazing. I love the aesthetic of the house. I thought the scares were really creative. This house in general is just really creative. And I also like all of the hidden Easter eggs you can find in the house. I really like Seeds of Extinction. The best part about this house is how well hidden the actors are. The actors really blend into the environment, and it leads to some really good scares. And also, like, the environment itself is just beautiful. Although this one was pretty divisive, I still really like Descendants of Destruction. This house was just gorgeous. I loved the lighting, and it had some really good scares, and I really liked how well hidden a lot of the scare actors were. The fact that this house made me end up checking out the show Ash vs. Evil Dead just shows how great this house is. And after watching the show, I definitely appreciate this house a lot more. Bride of Frankenstein Lives is great because while it is based on an IP, it actually has an original story to it. And I think the original story is very interesting and great. I just really love this house. While I think Yeti Terror of the Yukon is kind of overrated, it's still a great house. I love the theming of it. I like that it's actually cold in there. I think the Yetis look awesome, and I especially really like the gore in the house. I loved Fiesta de Chupacabras. It's very beautiful. It has great scares. Like literally the first time I did this house, I got every single scare. And also I love the puppets. I loved Revenge of the Tooth Fairy way more than I thought I would. I love the theming of this house. I like that it's told like it's a book, and I love the narration you hear while going through the house, and also the narration on the walls. Bugs Eaten Alive was an absolute blast. I love the 1950s setting. I love all the bugs in the house, and I just love how like gross this house is. The Shining has to be one of the best themed houses I've ever been through. Like, the house is just beautiful. It is so well themed. It feels like I'm in the movie, and overall this is just a great house based on an equally great movie. Absolutely deserving of House of the Year, Universal Monsters Legends Collide was awesome. I love how aggressive the scares are, and the actors really get in your face. And I love the tag team scares. Also, just like any other Universal Monsters house, it's beautiful. The Fallen is one of the most beautiful houses I've ever been through. Like, the theming is just off the charts. I love the costumes as well, and probably the highlight for most people is definitely the people that are like flying or on wires. I'm gonna be very honest, I did not think Graveyard Games was gonna be that good, but man was I wrong. This house was great. Not only was it one of the scariest houses that year, it was also a house that had a great story, and it just looked beautiful, and it was just awesome. I love Slaughter Cinema. It's a house that has such a cool idea, and it is so creative, and there are so many cool moments in this house, and I don't know if I'm the only one saying this, but honestly, I would be down for a sequel. It was a great scare zone that became a great house. Killer Clowns from Outer Space was awesome. This house was so much fun, and it had some surprisingly good scares. Case Files Unearthed Legendary Truth was great. I love the story, I love the noir style of it, I love the way some of the creatures look, and there's also some really great details if you're paying attention. I knew that Scary Tales Deadly Ever After was going to be great from the moment I saw the witch flying around in the beginning. And yeah, this house was great, and I loved seeing all of the horrific takes on classic fairy tales. Puppet Theater Captive Audience was great. The sets are very impressive considering that it was in a sprung tent, and yeah, the house just looks beautiful. Also, this house has some great scares, great characters, and great costumes. HHN Icons Captured was the house the icons deserved. I like that each of the icons gets their time to shine, and I also like the fact that the ending is different depending on when you go in the house. Is Beetlejuice scary? No. But what carries it is the theming. Like, the theming is on point, and this house is just so much fun. It has some great moments from the movie in it, and it's just everything I wanted a Beetlejuice house to be. Okay, look, depending on who you are, you will either want this house higher or lower on the list. Either way, I think the first Stranger Things house from 2018 is an achievement. Obviously, the best part of this house is the theming. Easily some of the best theming in any house. They nailed it, and it feels like you are stepping right into the show, and you feel very immersed. Another great thing about this house is the actors. They do a great job, and they look like their characters. Overall, while not the scariest house, it's one of the best on theming and immersion alone, and I cannot wait for them to do Season 4 in the future. I'm gonna be honest, when I first saw Wicked Growth on the speculation map, I did not think it would be that good. Then it was announced, and I read the concept of it, and I was excited. The event came, and let me tell you how great this house was. I'm gonna say it, this is one of the scariest houses I've ever been through. I like that it took something like pumpkins, which doesn't sound that scary, but made it terrifying. This house is the definition of a traditional Halloween house, and is exploding with creativity with some great characters, such as the Pumpkin Lord and the witches. Overall, Wicked Growth on paper does not sound that scary, but in execution, it's one of the scariest houses I've been through. I loved the scare zone from the previous year, so I was very excited for the house, and it did not disappoint. Despite me never seeing the movie, I thought Trick or Treat was a great house. Probably the best part of this house is the sets. Let's get this out of the way. These sets are really impressive and beautiful. I also really like the atmosphere and vibe of the house. Feels very Halloween. The house also has some really good scares and variety. According to people I have talked to, it does a really good job of capturing the spirit of the film. Overall, while I have never seen Trick or Treat the film, I think the house takes all the elements that made the scare zone great with some new stuff, and it makes for an amazing house. What do I even say about Dead Man's Pier Winter's Wake? From top to bottom, this house is absolutely gorgeous and immersive. This house is not the scariest house, although it does have some good scares. What carries the house is the theming and immersion. Another great thing about this house is the tone throughout. I love this sort of somber tone that the house is going for, and honestly it has a really good vibe to it. Overall, Dead Man's Pier Winter's Wake is a great example of how a house doesn't have to be the most terrifying house to be amazing, and it could solely be carried on theming and immersion alone. What do I even say about Dead Waters that hasn't already been said? Let's get this out of the way. This is probably the best facade I have ever seen in a Halloween Horror Night house. The house itself is just gorgeous. This house is also really immersive because the house on the inside makes it look like you are in a sinking boat, thanks to the slanted floors and walls. This also has some really good scares, especially in my opinion one of the most memorable scares I've ever seen at the event, which is the scare with the slanted floor. Overall, Dead Waters is one of the best originals in the event. With beautiful set design and an amazing facade, this offers one of the most unique experiences ever at HHN. House of a Thousand Corpses is a great example of how just because I don't like a property a house is based on, doesn't mean I won't like the house. I did not like the film House of a Thousand Corpses, but the house absolutely blew me away. I thought it would be one of the worst, but man was I wrong. The facade is easily one of the best facades in any IP house, and it looks like it was ripped straight out of the movie. One of the best parts of this house is the scare actors. They do a fantastic job of bringing the energy and embodying their characters. This house is also extremely chaotic and perfectly captures the spirit of the film. Overall, not a fan of the movie, but I am definitely a huge fan of the house. If you guys know me at all, you probably thought this would be my number one. Although it's not my favorite house that I have been through, it's definitely the house that means the most to me personally and has given me the best memories. I adore The Weekend After Hours Nightmare. People were so quick to judge it when it first got announced, and I am so happy it proved most people wrong. The best way to describe this house is creative, not just with the theming, but also with a lot of the scares. I also love how The Weeknd's music is used throughout the house, and I like that they later added some songs from Dawn FM. Overall, as a fan of The Weeknd and HHN, The Weekend After Hours Nightmare made me extremely happy. Just like Trick or Treat, I have never seen Poltergeist, but oh my god, this house is amazing. First off, I love how this house starts. I think the facade is incredible, and I like how it feels like it is raining. And I also like the fact that you start off underground. This house is also very scary. This house has some amazing scares, probably some of the best in an IP house. I also love all the different ghosts and ghouls in the house. I love the stilt walkers and the puppets. I think they look incredible. Overall, Poltergeist is an amazing house that is very impressive and scary. I have only ever seen Ghostbusters once, and it was to prepare for Halloween Horror Nights. So going in, I had no nostalgia for it, but even then, this house just blew me away. Just like Stranger Things, this house is not that scary, although surprisingly, there were some scares that got me. What carries this house is the theming. This is perfect theming. It feels like you are in the movie, and it has so many great moments. I remember someone else saying that this house almost feels like a dark ride, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. Overall, Ghostbusters is an immersive and amazing house, and it's what an IP house should be. I was very worried about The Haunting of Hill House because the show, which I love, is a slow burn, and I wasn't sure how well it would translate into a house. But I could safely say that this house was absolutely incredible. First off, the facade was absolutely gorgeous, and the set design in general is amazing. What I like most about this house is how it builds up over time. I like how, as the house progresses, it gets scarier and scarier. The scares in this house are also great, and they don't feel cheap. Overall, The Haunting of Hill House is by far my favorite house from HHN 30, and is an incredible house based on a really great show. What do I even say about Universal Monsters? When Hollywood did this house the previous year, I really hoped that Orlando would do it. Then it got announced, and I got excited. And then the event came, and it did not disappoint. First off, I love how the house looks. The sets in this house are really pretty, and the house also has some really nice details. What I like most about this house is that each of the classic monsters gets their time to shine. and they don't feel overshadowed by others. Even some of the less popular ones like Hunchback of Notre Dame and Phantom of the Opera have equally great scenes. Overall, Universal Monsters was everything I wanted it to be and more. So, American Horror Story Volume 2 is actually the first house I went through, but that's not why I love it so much. The house is just amazing. There is a lot to like with this one. I like that the seasons used don't ever feel overshadowed by others, and each season gets a time to shine. I also really like the set design. It is very nice to look at, and it feels very immersive. I also love the effects and design of the creatures. Each one gets their time to shine, and they do a good job of making them feel memorable. Overall, American Horror Story Volume 2 is the first house I ever went through, and is one of my favorites to this day. My favorite Halloween Horror Night house that I've ever been through is Scarecrow the Reaping. This one is considered by many as one of, if not the best house they've ever done, and it's not hard to see why. Let's get this out of the way. This one is by far the scariest house I have been through. To many it's considered the scariest house they have ever made, and it's not hard to see why. This house has some incredible scares. I also like how tall the scare actors are. It definitely makes them feel more threatening. I think the costumes look amazing, probably some of my favorites in the event. The set design is also great. I really like the old farm setting they used. Overall, Scarecrow the Reaping is my favorite house in Halloween Horror Nights, and I don't see anything else topping it.